and eggs. Now this is something that's fairly traditional in some circles, and in other circles it's somewhat new, but there are some cautions. If you've been used to doing this in the past, I'm going to tell you a few things that may have changed since you did it last. First, I'm going to make the brine. This is 1½ cups of cider vinegar, and this is going to be stored in the refrigerator. You can't actually can pickled beets and eggs. The whites get way too rubbery and they turn out really, really nasty. I've also got 1 cup of beet juice. Now this is simply the juice from cooking the beets. If you've got canned beets, you can strain the juice off your can of beets and then just add enough water to come up to 1 cup. And then just 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. These are not going to be sweet beets the way some recipes result. These are going to be more of a sour beet. So we're just going to stir these together real briefly and then bring it up to a boil, turn it down and let it simmer for 5 minutes. While we're waiting for that to come up to a boil, I want to talk to you about what's changed with pickled beets. Now, it used to be it's a pickle, so it should be safe. Still, you have to keep them in the refrigerator. We have now had a case of botulism toxin poisoning from homemade pickled beets. It's occurred with a gentleman who I would have one time said was elderly. Now I would say he was just in his prime. He was about 68 years old, and he made pickled beets and left them at room temperature, and that's where the problem came. If you make them and store them in the fridge, you're okay because you're acidifying, the beets are acidified, the whites of the egg get acidified, and as you can see what we get here at the end, notice that the whites have taken on that lovely pink shade that you get from the beet, but the yolk itself has not changed, and so the acidity of the yolk is still the same as it always was. Hence, you have a low acid food there. If left at room temperature, you can get botulism poisoning. So it's real important that you prepare everything, make sure that it's as clean as can be. The jars that you use actually do need to be sterilized, just as if you were making jelly or other kinds of pickles that are going in a water bath canner for less than 10 minutes. Make sure you do sterilize them. To sterilize jars, put them in boiling water, standing upright, fill the jars with water, bring that water, make sure that it comes to a boil again, and then let them sit in boiling water for 10 minutes. If you increase altitude as you go across the state, for every 1,000 feet you go above 1,000, you're going to add 1 more minute to that sterilization process. The other thing, we've got our water almost coming to a boil, is to make sure that your eggs are ready. Now these I started with really fresh eggs, and as you can see it can be a bit of a challenge to make sure they peel correctly. And there are 2 options here, either to start with a really fresh egg and knowing that you're going to have more trouble getting them to peel perfectly, or to start with a slightly older egg, at which point you've lost some moisture in the egg, and so the egg separates from that inner membrane more easily and allows you to peel them. What we're going to do is put our eggs into our sterilized jar. See if I can tip it enough. Now in with this you can also, and these are medium eggs, this works best with medium or small. You can also add to it a few slices of beets. Whole beets are great. The beets I started with were too large to actually use whole, and then just keep adding to. Looks like that one's got a bit of an issue with it there, so we'll set that one aside. Layering it every now and then with a few more beets, and then when your brine is ready, we're just going to pour that over the top. So remember, the brine has got to simmer for about 5 minutes. Make sure you make enough brine that you're going to completely cover the eggs that you have here. Now I'm using a canning jar because I know those sterilize well. Other jars will work too, but the thing you've got to watch out is that we need to sterilize the lid as well as the jar. So if you're going to use another type of jar that may have a cardboard lining, make sure that you take that out and sterilize the lid, and then you may actually want to lay some wax paper over the top. Otherwise, when the metal comes in contact with the brine, which is very acidic, it may actually eat through. So we're going to wait a couple of more minutes for the brine to be ready, and then we'll finish this off. After you've had it simmering for about 5 minutes, you've got some flavor development. Please remember, this is not something that you're going to want to can. This is something that must be stored in the refrigerator. There are no instructions for safely canning home pickled eggs. All right, we're going to ladle this into our jar. And I'm using the jar funnel primarily because beet juice stains so much. And we're going to pour this over, making sure that you pack them kind of loosely. You can see around the edges where the juice hasn't penetrated to the edges because the egg is there up against the glass. You're going to want to come back every couple of days and make sure that that does in fact end up moving the eggs around a little bit inside the jar, so that that in fact does get taken care of. Now there is no assigned headspace on these, so I'm going to fill it up pretty close to the top because I have that one egg sticking out. Remember, you've sterilized your lid as well as the beets. If you didn't have enough brine to completely cover everything, then just go ahead and fill it up the rest of the way with vinegar. This is a type of recipe because it's not actually canned. You could use homemade vinegar on this one. With other kinds of pickles, we always recommend that you use 4 to 6% acidity vinegar, which it will tell you on the label. This one's using cider vinegar because it gives a nice flavor. It's going to sit in your refrigerator. You're going to want to refrigerate it immediately. You don't want to wait around and wait for it to cool. So put it in the refrigerator right away. You may have to hold on to it with a pot holder to get it there in the beginning and set it on a heat pad just to make sure that it doesn't melt anything underneath it. But then 2 to 4 weeks later, you're going to be able to come back and find something that looks like this, where you've had that penetration going through. You want to leave them at least 2 weeks before you start to use them, and then they'll keep anywhere up to 4 months. So it's something special, something I hope you'll try as the beets come in and out of your garden, and it's just something really interesting to give a try. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.